Midens. You start off the game by agreeing to a contract with a talking gun. She advises you about the dangers of the journey you will embark on, and that you two will be bound together like notes in a song. It is a Surrealist jrpg game released back in 2012, and almost entirely developed by a single man who goes by the name My Former Selves. It's got tons of psychedelic landscapes that bleed into each other. One spooky and haunting passage can lead into a sudden dreamlike world, which sounds like the concept of liminal spaces. You know, the overtalked topic of the internet that I'm several years late to the train for. But the concept of liminality extends beyond just spaces. I first learned about the term through the PS2 RPG franchise .hack. Each game entry included an anime OVA called .hack liminality. The anime takes inspiration from the anthropological definition, which is the transition period of someone going through a rite of passage. Think of a male who is no longer a boy, but not yet a man.
I do not want to be a man! Get it off!
Liminality is used to describe the confusing gray area between all things. And the topic of this video, Midens, uses the concept of liminality in almost every facet of its world. So it's not primarily focused on liminal spaces. For example, in Midens, you play as a nomad whose attire is a mishmash of different time periods. And also his weapon is a talking gun. You explore a world known as the Rift. Here, passages are constantly leading towards different worlds. Patches of sand gradually become a cosmic landscape, which in turn leads into ordinary and modern settings, but then changes into the alien and the unknown. Lore-wise, the Rift hosts patches of various worlds that its inhabitants bring with them. Either their world was destroyed, or the denizens chose to leave the world behind, but brought back with them a little piece they can call home. Fans of Yumme Nikki can see the influence and inspiration. As the world you explore takes you further into the unknown, a simple door can suddenly take you into a psychedelic landscape with no rhyme or reason behind it. The trippy then adds into realism, since you can come across constructs made from literal human faces. Is that Ron Jeremy? And this game blends reality with fantasy. What appears to be human simply isn't, but sometimes is. It's difficult to decipher what is merged together in this game because it creates alien worlds and then blends them all together. It's the epitome of liminality. But that's also not the game's entire focus.
So, liminality is not the only aspect of Midens. And just like the game, this video won't be focusing entirely on liminality. In fact, it's more of a love letter gushing about Midens because nobody really talks about Midens anymore. It was forgotten.
The game also boasts a morality system where you can kill these people off. Genie, your talking gun, even encourages so. You don't have to, but if you want, the option's there. Just equip your talking gun and take aim at an NPC in the overworld. Sometimes they're killed instantly, mewling in agony as a pile of blood replaces where they once stood. And other times, they will defend themselves, initiating combat, but pleading for you to spare their lives. And battling these NPCs is cool because their battle sprite almost never matches what you see in the overworld. Just like the Rift, these NPCs are a collage of different things. You'll never know what side is waiting for you until you pull that trigger. So, if this all sounds good to you, then I heavily encourage you to go to the Game Jolt link that I provided below and try the game for yourself. Midens was released in a time between Yumme Nikki and Undertale, but it has its own unique identity. Just be sure to install the font package called Batang that's included in the zip file, otherwise you'll get invisible text. Alright, still watching? Good. So, you're probably wondering, why didn't Midens stick around as an icon with the other jrpg indie games? I think I know a few reasons why.
Let's get real here for a moment. It's boring, comes off as pretentious to most people, none of the NPCs leave a lasting impact, and the morality system was poorly baked. It wasn't half-baked, it wasn't quarter-baked, it wasn't baked at all. It was fucking raw!
The landscapes are cool the first time around, but they quickly outgrow their welcome. It's too easy to end up retreading the same grounds again and again since a lot of the pathways loop back into each other, and sometimes you just end up getting sent straight back from where you came. There are places that can be considered towns, but there is no real objective or goal set for the player, nor are there any stores to buy items from. And the random quotes from the occult and serial killers, come on, it just comes off as fuck off nonsense. There's nothing actually profound behind it.
It's all flair and no substance. Here, I'll quote a serial killer right now. How's this for a headline? French fries! Sounds significant, right? No, it's not profound at all without context.
There are no actual consequences for anything. An NPC might plead for their life in the middle of combat, but nothing literally changes if you kill or spare. You'll go back to the overworld and they'll just say the same damn line. And no one, not the gamer, not the dev, and not you, the viewer, will care if this walking piece of art exhibit lived or died. Because why would you? It literally has nothing going for it except quoting Charles Mason. Only a couple of times did my heartlessness actually create a cause and effect. And for every NPC you kill, you get nothing.
Nothing.
So, pacifism sucks. Why not go on a genocide route? Kill everybody. Because Midens lacks that additional context that JRPGs usually have, save the girl, save the world, political espionage, whatever. So killing everybody is just really boring, even if the battles can be sometimes stimulating.
You shoot, combat starts, waste 3 turns assembling the boys, then literally only guess at what skills will actually work for the hundreds of different collages of art that look like they just came out of a Monty Python intermission. And just to add a bit of salt to the french fries I mentioned before, the game dev even threw a tantrum over a bad review, one that listed many of the same complaints I have. And when somebody replied back to the dev saying no one was above criticism, you know what the dev responded back with? Oh, and my high horse? It'll take a big gratuitous dump on your grave. Smiley emoticon.
Well then, I'm gonna go on an even higher horse and take a dump on you while you're on your high horse while you're taking a dump on someone's fucking grave. Yeah, call that shit the landslide. Alright, I'm done with the AVGN shtick because truth be told, I do personally still like the game Midens, and I know if anybody's familiar with Midens, they might already know about the negative review, feedback, drama thing. So I just wanted to get all my gripes out all the way, put all my pieces on the table before I move further along into the video.
It's just a really hard recommendation when you know the average person will find themselves quickly getting bored. But that boredom is also one of the main points that Middens tries to get across. It's hard to describe, for example, many people hate the Catcher in a Rye because Holden Caulfield comes off as a whiny bitch. Well, spoilers, he is a whiny bitch. That's the point of the novel. You need to realize that he doesn't want to grow up. But you can still understand the novel's intentions, hate Holden Caulfield, but still enjoy the literary symbolism surrounding that fact. The enjoyment is taking in how everything is structured and how you come to interpret the artist's intention. Interpreting all the symbolism and stuff. And we know what message Salinger intended for us.
Kill John Lennon!
That's how I think of Middens. Boredom is the core component that'll lead to a major theme later on in the story. And I understand that and appreciate how it makes you realize that. And looking back, there is a lot the game does well. So if you're still on the fence, just follow my philosophy and don't take my word entirely. Honestly, the best method is just to play it and see if you like it on your own. You might find the combat engaging, or you might find something that resonates with you. And I personally think Midens is underrated and overlooked, and I want to gush about all the positives. But I also wanted to get my gripes out of the way. So let's just start out from the beginning. When we boot up the game for the first time, we're greeted to an eyeball rolling its way down to the revolver. This talking gun tells us that we're about to play a game. The Time Nomad is meant to represent us, the player. And yes, us. I'm including you into this, viewer. They've been wandering the rift already for some time when they come across Genie, and she can tell that Time Nomad is bored. That's why she takes advantage of him and hopes to use the Time Nomad as a means to purge the rift while simultaneously explaining how the rift works. She acts as our literal guide as she explains the JRPG combat of the game and gives us a rundown of what the rift is. As you travel the world and come across specific rooms, Genie will talk to you and ask you questions. They can be hypotheticals like which group of people would you sacrifice first, or what would your last words be if a black hole were to consume you and your best friends? I don't know. I'd probably say something stupid like, see, told you I'd go galactic, then proceed to get spaghettified and spat out into the cosmos. What would you say? These talks are really intriguing, and honestly they're a motivator to keep exploring the rift, hoping that you can trigger more of these scenes. At one point, I was met with the grotesque sight of Genie's inner workings where organs beat and pulse in unison. Yeah, put some clothes on, woman. But in regards to a story, well, Middens has less of a plot and more of a setting for world building, if that makes any sense. For example, Genie tells us about the vermes, these little worms that glue the rift together. These wigglers are encountered throughout the game and can be picked up most of the time. They act as consumables and can restore health and mana. Wait, sorry, I meant pulse and nerve. And also the vermes can be used in place of certain skills during combat, if you want to save mana. Oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna use mana. One interesting scene with Genie caught my interest. It's how she explained how her bullets work. For every bullet that enters a target, it actually leaves behind an egg. One that will eventually hatch into another talking revolver like Genie. So this is a very literal case of violence breeding violence, as she's using you to propagate her species. Neat. Also, one scene had me chuckling because she sneezed and someone in the overworld behind her ended up dead because of it. How many Genies will sprout from this, I wonder? And Genie herself is just a good character. She communicates via emoticons too and gives me that Hello Kitty avatar vibe. You know, the one where someone on Discord uses a cutesy ooh anime girl attitude and then proceeds to be the absolute worst thing that can happen in your life. But enough about Genie and eggs and worms and the writer's thinly disguised fetish. I'm kidding. Mostly. Let's talk about the meat of the game's experience. The world. There are so many sights I want to describe. You can be exploring a hotel room and suddenly come across a hallway full of knives, each one cutting into you when you make contact. Or you can be exploring what appears to be an animal shelter, where these inhabitants are locked up in cages. And if you happen to interact with one of these hatches, then you're suddenly tossed down into another tunnel system with no way to get back. Well fuck man, I wanted to see more of that place. How the fuck do I get back there? Then you have the caves, which seem a little bland at first, but then you randomly stumble upon a pimp den. Yes, a pimp den. And one of these caves lead to a dancing pair of legs. Shake it girl. Question mark. You know what? I've ascended the concept of gender. Come here. You can kill the legs too, and they happen to drop a consumable stat upgrade too. And then the train subway was a cool find because it came off as a horror game. I was waiting to see something horrifying as I kept wandering down the tracks into one dark, quiet room after another. Oh hey, liminal spaces. You know, it's not the liminality that's horrifying, it's the anticipation and expecting to find something hideous up ahead, only to be ambushed from behind. But let me get this straight because I'm not. This really isn't a horror game. It's unsettling and a bit creepy at times, but it never verged onto full-on nightmare fuel. Arguably, in my opinion at least. I've played so many of these supernatural RPGs that my standards are probably a bit too high. I do admit that the staircases add a bit of dread, especially since "what the fuck is that?" is following you. And a lot of the dark rooms with art etched in. The art itself is cool, but I really wish the dev kinda chilled on the psychedelic lights. They can definitely hurt your eyes if you're playing in the dark, especially these white rooms with human frog heads. Also across your journey, there may be times where a path is seemingly blocked, but these can be opened up if you pull out your trusty guitar. Look, I've reached this boat, and now I'm captain of this ship. Yeah, the Nomad is also a troubadour and can strum some sweet strings to open up the pathways. It's cool at first, but a lot of the pathways relock themselves when you leave, so it becomes another chore where you have to play another tasty jam just to get on through. And it's not the most stable action. Sometimes I sort of just fidget in place and stand there. I panicked at first thinking I was just soft locked, but I kept adjusting the shaft and then the Nomad will put it away. Eventually. It can also make certain rooms trigger special events, like lighting up a dark room and having a bunch of tasty worms pop out. Juicy. And across your travels, you can come across a bus.
This is the Love Bus, fueled by jazz, dreams, and of course, love.
And it takes you to 3 specific locations. From there, you can map out the rift in your head, learning what direction takes you where. The rift also houses various NPCs. Most of them interactable, but like I bitched before, nothing really profound. It's rare, but some do refer to the world itself, like how this one dudette tells me that our friend flees at the smallest hint of danger. So I shot him and watched his friend disappear. You can even slay the NPC who acts as your save spot. This fancy NPC plays a cool jingle when you talk to him. They save your game, heal you up, and say they will do their best to clear the record of any slander that befalls you. Which is the game's fancy way of saying, look, load back a save if you killed someone important, like the bus driver because killing him locks you in said bus and soft locks the game. Oh, and let me tell you about the TV that was plugged into some sort of quadruped wear wire. You know, those enemies from Deltarune. So of course I shot it, and the TV became unplugged. TV may have killed a radio star, but I killed it, I killed it, I killed it, I killed it, killed it, killed it, killed it, killed it.
I'm afraid I have one of those bothersome personal questions to ask you, and I'm confident I won't unload one more bullet until I've gotten an answer. Do you love me? My first memory is of a bright light, and then suddenly, that of a launching beam, pressing into the iris of my vision. A steaming liquid streams from the instrument, wetting my pupils. Soon my sight heightens, to perceive the full color spectrum for the very first time. I am on a rubber revolving track, nearly mouth to mouth with my doubles, who kindly purse me kisses as machines flesh their lips with red chapstick. Each of our eyes the very bluest that blue can go, and none fail to glimmer. Every pair is polished by daggers of diamond to the best possible sheen. All of us are poured into private theaters, where the manufacturers exhibit instructional videos told in story formats. Every life is precious, we learn. Weapons with inbuilt moral discretion, innately wired to discriminate between appropriate force and unjustified action. Perfect tools for a new age. In those days, a revolver would enter court on a silk pillow. I have passed many hands since then. I have been pointed at the temples of serial criminals and children alike. Did you like that story? I'm so glad we're partners.
TV may have killed a radio star, but I killed a TV, so take that. Oh, and another memorable NPC was this big mama car surrounded by baby cars. And by killing the mama, you make the smaller cars backtrack away from you in what I presume to be his fear. Aw, poor babies. You know, this and the friend disappearing were the only times killing something affected others in the overworld, and that example with the cars was really effective. It's just a shame there really isn't more of that, you know? Also, I ran into a mini-me with googly eyes. Look at this little silly Billy. And there's even a fake love bus that waits for you to interact with it so it can ambush you into a battle. Good God, a bus luring in unsuspecting victims? I think there was an Aqua Teen episode about that.
Ride the bus to bus hell, you bus.
There are some specific one-time events in these random rooms too. Like this area where if you pop a bubble, then an alarm system goes off and the door shuts tight, but manage to slip through undetected and you can witness a couple of somethings in the room ahead. There was also this mysterious technologic warehouse where you can come across a cat on a TV screen. Interacting with it gave me various binary choices to select. I don't know what I picked, but whatever I did must have pissed it off because it initiates a boss fight. So I had to take out a core, and then when I left the battle, the cat looked mildly irritated afterwards. Speaking of boss fights, I hardly touched on the combat aspect because, well, look, it starts off as slow and annoying since you gotta summon your chakras. You know, these plasmic friends who all act as teammates. But to do so, it costs mana and turns, and they only learn new skills by leveling up, so you want them to come out in every battle so they can level up evenly with you. And this game was primarily made by one dude like I mentioned before, my former selves. He may be obnoxious when it comes to criticism, but low-key, it's commendable how Midens was supposed to be a team effort until people backed out. So my former self says, fuck it, I'm gonna make my own with blackjack and hooker legs in the pimp caves. But the point is, he made this on his own, and given what I've played so far, I mean, it's nothing to scoff at, man. This game is marvelous, actually. But man, does the combat wear you out. The game throws a bone to the player at the start. You know, you can kill these stupid skull-spired things to level up a bit. But oh no, each time you kill something, you get one nut thing, which keeps count of how many people you've killed. It's like negative karma. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, you can also do push-ups. Yeah, you get 1 XP for each push-up. Not that it's useful, maybe early game, maybe. But your chakra don't benefit from this, and they need to be in combat to level up and learn skills. In time, you'll see that each one learns a specific skill set and has a specific element. Alm is the healer and can do melancholic damage. Lamb is the aggressor, hosting a bunch of powerful magic spells and specializes in sanguine type moves. And Yam is the troll. He has all the status afflicting skills and gives the enemies cholera. These googly guys are supposed to represent the 4 temperaments, or personality traits. I don't know, there's a wiki page out there, but the game doesn't really expand on it, and the nomad himself represents phlegm in case you're curious. Just think of them as elemental types, and each monster you encounter is weak and resistant to specific types. They can be also badly crippled by status effects, and the key to winning fights early on is figuring out which status can harm or cripple them the most. And once you get access to a good number of skills, it can actually be very stimulating to try and come up with a strategy on the fly for each encounter. However, it can also be argued that it's less of a strategy and more of a, let me just cast one spell of everything and see what does the most damage and stick to that. Especially since enemy designs are all over the place and don't really give a hint about what their potential weaknesses are. But the art and animations for these skills are pretty cool, not gonna cap, and the enemies themselves have a bunch of unique skills. So it's kind of a treat to see them play out the first time around. I love that the enemies can cast insult towards the Nomad. It does nothing except change his name to an insult that wouldn't seem out of place from Monty Python, which, okay, maybe my former selves was a big fan of Terry Gilliam. But again, with the combat, the game also shoots itself in the foot because each battle you gotta waste mana to summon up your spiritual stinkers, and a huge chunk of it too. A lot of times you have to go back to a save point when you run out of mana because you don't want to end up fighting by yourself. Especially since there are ambushes that can happen in the overworld. Think of it this way, it costs 70 mana per chakra, so 210 of the Nomad's mana is wasted right away, not counting resummons in case the enemy knows how to exuent your fella. Now, look at the Nomad's max mana. You've got about 2 battles worth in the beginning before you gotta replenish, and it takes several levels to accumulate enough mana growth before you can go one more battle before having to go back. But hey, at least there's a bunch of cool sprite art, like a house for a face. What the fuck is this? What the hell is that? Cat. What about this dude lounging back on a sofa while his lackeys handle the fight? Alligator with wings. Beetle. And the bosses, who don't actually stand out given the random nature of the enemies' designs. The only sign that you fucked around and are about to find out is when the music is different because the bosses use a unique theme. Check it out. Another Nomad. We could be brothers. Well, call me Cain because you're about to be disabled. Get it? Because in the Bible, Cain kills Abel, his brother, and I disabled his ability to... Moving on from bad jokes. Once you reach a certain threshold, the game sadly becomes too easy. And you know what? Middens would be so much cooler if combat wasn't avoided so heavily for being a chore. The chakras having to be summoned one by one per turn really adds to the burnout you'd inevitably feel. But even if that wasn't a factor, there's just so many different encounters. It should be a good problem to have. I mean, who the hell complains about more game? And you're not obligated to kill everything, right? Well, my complaint comes from the fact that there are fetch quests in this game. Yeah, I was holding this back because there are certain NPCs you can interact with that suddenly come with a portrait when speaking. This is how you know they want something and are willing to trade. And these items are dropped by killing the NPCs you meet, and there's hundreds of unique items. Because honestly, where the fuck is the family album? Oh, it's dropped by an enemy you encounter pretty early on in the game's map.
And it only took me 6 hours of gameplay to figure that out.
I don't even remember how I got most of the items, to be honest, but I played this game for hours across several days until I was able to find what these seemingly more relevant NPCs are looking for. My first successful trade, I got healing items, which did not bode well for my quest. But then another one gave me something surprising: equipment. Yeah, since there's no shops or any place to get new gear, you pretty much play with what's on your back for most of the game, so getting a new item like that was really surprising. One NPC actually attacks me after the trade, but then you kill them and get a reward if you step in where they once stood. And this item is also another piece of gear as well. While I love the concept of these trades, the problem is that they feel like endgame because it's going to take forever to find the very specific item they want from the hundreds of junk everybody drops. And there was no mention of different equipment in this game at all. For all I know, they might have a special effect in battle, but I wouldn't know what the hell it does. So you're not completing these trades unless you kill literally everything and go through the hundreds of unique items you get from that. And of course, there's going to be a lot of useless junk along the way, like what the fuck am I going to do with this antibacterial soap? Really? An expired coupon? Thanks. Can't wait to use this in the shops that don't exist. So beyond the trades and exploring, there really isn't much else to do besides talk to the same people over and over. And again, these lines of dialogue are complete nonsense. Ooh, 12 spirits are staring back at me. To death and its misunderstood kindness. You know what? I'll say cheers to that.
Know any racist jokes? Those are my favorites. Hey, I'm just quoting the game. I'm being honest. Look.
And also, the game is very glitchy. I already mentioned it before, but the guitar is jank and sometimes freezes the Nomad in the overworld. And then sometimes the gun shooting in general just is jank as hell. I can't seem to kill certain NPCs in any direction. But then I take a few steps away and their heads suddenly explode. Then there was a few times where I'd shoot someone, initiate combat and kill them, and then the moment I'm in the overworld, I'm thrown right back into the same battle like they haven't died, and I have no choice but to run away. Also, sometimes when you kill somebody, their pile of blood continues to walk in the overworld. Honestly, that's creepy, I think that should say, yeah. Also, it's weird how your chakras come and go at will. I don't think it's a glitch, but sometimes your spiritual summoners, they start out in battle already summoned, or summoned but dead. And yeah, there is a difference. If they're dead, then you could use to revive them, versus, not being summoned so they cannot be interacted with, period. And then there's this other thing, I don't know if it's a glitch or not, but the game randomly decides to unequip Genie. So I try to shoot somebody and realize I have to go back to the menu and put her back in. But at a certain point, I felt like I explored everywhere, but we're still missing items, so I went crazy and tried playing my guitar everywhere. And so I came across this smiling asshole room where the guitar would create a flash of blinding light and then do nothing. Intentional? Glitch? You decide, because I'm going home. And here is when the boredom seeps in. Revisiting the same worlds, being thrown back to the bus and unable to backtrack because I dared to check a dilapidated bathroom stall, going down a set of stairs, only to find a room that acts as a dead end, retreading the same foggy, polluted hallways, hoping I forgot to take one of the many roads here, and entering the same hotel and checking every room, playing my guitar everywhere hoping new roads open up, getting excited when I enter a seemingly new gateway, only for it to turn out to be the opposite side of a chain link fence I already came across hours ago, rechecking the same sands and going to the same walls, beaches, traveling across the same train strolling tracks, through the same checking roads, out the horrifying going moon, up the stairs, going down the checking stairs, the same going hotel, in every room, checking out a cube and getting sent back to the starting point, backtracking to the starting point in case I missed and something, looking into the blackness, and going across the same beach with the alligator and heads, into the darkness, and walking across finding sand, more dead ends and having to backtrack to go back and lose my way and bus, start all over, walk into the hotel, to the beach, get lost in familiar and I rooms. Did check this, yes. I just fell into the same caves, and I'm back here and again, I'm back there again, darkness again, and sands again, and caves and again, hotels again, and I'm taking a bus
again, if you ever want to end it all, I'm here for you. When you finally tire yourself, head on over to your inventory of skills. The final option is waiting for you there, if you have the guts to go through with it.
After slaying 30 NPCs, Genie stops you and offers a new skill you can use in the overworld. Exuent Nomad. This skill is constantly hovering in your menu, teasing you about what would happen if you choose to end it all. Its prompt double checks with you.
Have you done all you could in life?
After spending several hours combing the rift, I wasn't sure if I did do everything. I was still missing certain items, but I also didn't want to kill literally everything. Mostly because I was totally bored out of my mind, unwilling to continue the nomad's journey across the rift. I tried to pace myself, I did, but the burnout grew strong, and I felt the dread of not finding anything new in this fucking game. So I finally did it. I highlighted that command and pulled the trigger.
Oh, what's this I see?
Ew, Genie, stop that. The game doesn't end. Instead, you're taken to what I assume is purgatory. The NPCs here are all aggressive. They stop you in your path and immediately try to consume you. The trippy landscape isn't anything you're unfamiliar with at this point. Almost all the worms here will bite you, by the way, except for the glowing ones. The final passage is an arm stretching out into the sky, and near a doorway is this game's version of a super boss. At least, so I've been told. I've seen some comments and memes about avoiding this particular fight, but again...
You know what? I'll spare you. I'm gonna be going in there now.
It really wasn't that hard. I was around level 20 when this happened, so that feels a little high, but again, all the skills in the game aren't unlocked until around level 30, so you decide if I was overpowered or not. Anyways, step into the doorway and see that Genie is waiting for us. She has limbs now, and goes on to a very dramatic final speech. She reminisces about her first victim, a clerk, one that the Nomad reminds her of, because she can see the boredom in their eyes. Point is, life can be boring. The rift is boring. Combat is boring. Killing everyone is boring. But not to Genie, who doesn't feel bored, but rather stimulated because she feels it's her purpose. Murdering is what she was made to do after all. She then prattles on about karma, seeing it as a god and her as its angel, and that she will kill everyone who has no use in life. I gotta admit, I love how apologetic she is.
1,000 pardons, but I must kill you now. 1,000,000 sorries, but karma has selected you to die. 1,000,000,000 apologies, but this is the end of our contract. 1,000,000,000,000 condolences, but the credits will soon roll, and you won't live to see them. But first, a bothersome question. Any last words?
Told you I'd go galactic. Let's kill this bitch. Now it's time to take her on. The Nomad lacks certain skills since you no longer have Genie on your side, but your chakra should be able to handle her with no problem. Also, I love the percussion-based track. It sounds like it was recorded live, so it's got a performative vibe to it, you know? And yeah, again I'm gonna say it, Genie's not that tough. At most, she took out a third of the Nomad's HP with a single attack, but considering the backup my ethereal amigos have, it was no sweat. After winning some bullet casings, you're taken to the overworld where Genie mocks you.
Oh, you got me. I'm surely a goner.
I mean, goner? Yeah, it's a typo. The game has several typos actually, but it's nitpicky, so I neglected to mention them at this point. At least it's an extra N and not an O, because that word takes a different context than current day standards. Yeah, I hate that word too. Anyways, Genie's done messing around and takes us to phase 2. And she sprouts a hand where her eyes and lips have attached to. Also, there's a woman laying on top of the gun. She looks bored. Genie has the ability to absolutely de-summon your chakras now, but it's one at a time and it's no different to them getting one-shotted. She can be a bit hard, sure, but will heal you up, and Lamb can afflict her with Muffle, which cancels out her skills. I accidentally found this out because the Oogle skill happened to apply Muffle on top of dealing damage. And all my skills did pretty good damage, but Spotlight took itself and dealt the most. Another easy victory and a bunch of useless XP to boot, because this is the end of the game.
Yeah, unbreathable air, water that does not quench, food that does not nourish, love that does not please or inseminate. Even last words ring hollow. Life has lost its luster. The mind commits all it learns to attune. Happy extinction event. Merry doomsday. Inform me if you find the light switch on the other side of death, friend.
Now, there are two endings that differ depending on how many people you killed. In my murder happy ending, you see Genie blinded and bleeding. She calls out to you again and again, not wanting to be alone.
I have a question for you. Are you there? Are you there? Please answer me. Are you there?
I couldn't help it, I gave her the company.
Good. No. Great. Great.
We then see the Nomad is given another chance at life, and he's back at the Rift. All the crazy citizens move across the sandy landscape as the credits roll, and once the casting call ends, we see the Nomad board a bus one last time before being taken to the main menu. But in the other ending, where I only killed in self-defense, we see that Genie is still alive and full of love. She seems to praise life now and tells us to smoke a cigarette because we did good, ace. We then see Nomad and Genie together and wow. The Nomad looks scared of her. Is this a bad ending? I can't actually tell. We then cut to the final scene where... strangely enough, despite all the shit I was talking about how pretentious the game can come off, yeah, I don't know, that final image kind of, it did evoke something in me. Don't really know what exactly. I know, I ranted about the game being pretentious and throwing all this collage art at us, hoping something will resonate with the viewer. But I couldn't help it. I had my Danny DeVito moment at the end. You know, where he goes, "I get it." It's funny because it took until this final portrait, the final branch of my playthrough before I moved on to the editing process of the video, to finally feel something, you know? I'd rather not articulate because it's heavy themes, man, and a bit too TMI between me and you, viewer. If you're even still around. If you are, thank you. Thank you so much for sticking around to this video. I don't even know how to label this video. It started out as me wanting to explain Middens as one of the original Liminals. That's not even accurate because I wanted to do this video for Halloween years ago, but held it off because, I don't know. In the end, liminality and horror, they're all just components for a broader message that should be experienced, not explained. It's Middens. It's a compost heap, thriving off the waste of carcasses and human waste. A disgusting way to label it, but through all that trash, something sprouts. And you personally, you have to decide if that sprout is something to be cherished, or ignored, or maybe even destroyed. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. See ya.